What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to love? These are all questions one might ask themselves throughout their life, whether it be a major conversation or something you just think about lightly from time to time. Well, for one robot in particular, he aimed to answer that question through music. Hola everyone, I'm Norman, and I've been digging around the internet since I could understand it as a kid, lurking around in all the places I could get to, absorbing all the information I could, from places like old YouTube to Newgrounds. But for today, most importantly, music and music forums. And I believe I may have just stumbled upon the story of the decade, and it starts with that question. What does it mean to be human? There exists a forum, long forgotten by the internet by now, describing one couple's plan to see what it meant to be human. And it's something that they would accomplish by, from themselves, stating, by making an android. Mind you, this was started in 2000, way before the development of robotics and AI today. And you could see it all here. The development of their blueprints, how they would test computers, and how they were going to train this program through music of all kinds. But then 3 years later, it all goes silent. The website was taken down, and I can't even find it anymore on the Wayback Machine. The only way I found it was at a very old forum where someone shared pictures of it. Now, very clearly, you might think that this would be, total hoax. Or maybe it was just people, having fun and nothing would come of it. And that their blueprints looked very unique. And so nothing like this could ever have been made in such an early time, in the early 2000s. Right? Well, that's the thing. I found the robot that was from these blueprints. Look here. See this blueprint? Memorize it. It's very important because 20 some years later, after they went dark, here comes a robot that was just as they planned. But it seems like it became something more than just what they initially had intended. This is Mr. Machine, a self-proclaimed, machine that believes in love, with a huge catalog of songs that I'd never heard before, and it seems like not a lot of people have either. Packaged with its own vocals and everything. So once I saw this, I couldn't help myself, and I just started listening from the beginning. And let me tell you, after the first album, it all started making sense to me. This is Reintroduction to Love, Mr. Machine's very first album. And I think it gives a little bit more to the story from previously. And if you look on SoundCloud, you can find the little descriptions of every song, like this one, and this one, and this one. Some of the songs have lyrics, some don't, and some are kind of hard to make out. But I think what they're meant to symbolize is the different forms of love. I mean, just look at this song here. It becomes even clearer when watching the music video. It's about walking your dog, and walking your dog every day. I mean, see how it starts from here, this beginning scene, and then it ends the same way? It's almost like the song could be played on loop, because you walk your dog every day. And now compare that one to this one. conductor. Just like this song and all the other songs on the album, they all tell a story about a different kind of love, coupled with the fact that you get this little sentence right here. If you go on SoundCloud, I think it really confirms what I'm thinking about here. And it's the same kind of thing that the couple talked about in some of the pictures that I seen from when they were talking about their program back then. Wanting something to know what it was like to be loved. The part I don't understand is why the last two songs on the album are named that way. They don't quite follow the same thing, and their sentences are a little bit more cryptic. I don't quite know what the acronym is supposed to stand for, but even so, I still do like the tracks. They're a little bit more, I guess you would say clubby or dancey in that sense. And this album as a whole, remember it, because it would really help you to look back on this once we go through the other three. So we go from this techno electronic dance music, and then in the second album, all of a sudden you're hit with these melodies from a way more tropical variety. A huge shift in genre. And that wasn't mentioned at all in the learning programs or blueprints from what I saw. Even so, I still found it to be an interesting take on the surf genre as a whole. Its own little surf techno. So, Bite Waves, such a departure from the first, though it still has its own story, which you can kind of grasp between the songs if you think about it in order. And I think what proves this point is the order of three songs on the album: Calypso Cruise, Get Barreled Boy, which is misspelled for some reason, and Tectonic Reef. So in Calypso Cruise, they started with this radio track. And then it's cut off by the sound of a skateboard. And then the song changes, like whoever's riding the board is speeding up and chasing down or cruising. And then it screeches to a halt at the end of the song. Which is then followed right after by Get Barreled Boy. Which, if you don't know surfing knowledge, it's when the really cool part of surfing comes in, when the wave is crashing over you and it kind of creates a tunnel. And I think the song is meant to capture that feeling of trying to get into it, like chasing it down in excitement and finally being in the tunnel. Only to then crash at the end. And you end up eating it, and you crash and fall in.
Game over.
And that crashing is then symbolized in this transition to the next song, Tectonic Reef. That takes you directly into what it's like being underwater, and then this really atmospheric sounds start coming in, like you were underneath the waves, in like a cave. I found it to be a great jump from every which one. You're diving in and out from the cave underwater. So really, they all feel very fun and made with love. So it's hard for me to grasp that an AI from 20 years ago could make something so human, you know? And that to me is what I find so interesting about the third album, Halfway Up. The first half of the album has songs a lot more somber in comparison to the previous two, and their lyrics and their subject matter seems very sad. Like this song, Wish I Was You.
When I was a young boy, I fell on my dreams, staring at the screen, listen with my mind.
Which very clearly is about Mr. Machine himself and what he was like as a young robot. Again, very human in its emotions. We all have felt the feeling of wanting to be someone else, even for just a second. But it's not always a positive emotion. So why would you program a robot to feel that way? Or like this song, Digital Sea. You hear that? It's the perspective of an artist trying to get the viewer to look at you, but you feel like a droplet of water in the sea of the internet. The other songs around it tell a similar tale, from giving up to feeling like an attention seeker. But then something interesting happens in the very middle of the album. The atmosphere, the overall sound changes. Somber tones now sound uplifting. And then he goes in about singing about wanting to change.
I want to change. I want to know how I can feel when I'm alone.
And so he does.
Change. I want to change.
Every song after that is brighter sounding and more hopeful. Bramble talks about holding on to your passions even though they may hurt you sometimes. And the ending track, Symphony of Mind, was something I wasn't really expecting at all at the end of all of this. I really recommend you guys, when you start this album, listen to it from beginning to end. Don't jump around. In fact, and for all the albums, listen to them in order, because I feel like it was made to be listened that way. Each of them is their own concept album, meant to be listened to in order. And when I did that, I really felt like I got the full experience. Now, I'm not one for AI-generated anything, especially for what you see nowadays. But I don't know, something about this just feels so different. Like it really was made by a person. Before we get into the most recent album, I think there's something important to note here. People have seen this machine in person, in action. I don't know how this isn't the most talked about thing in the science space because of all the AI stuff talking about right now, but it's beyond me. So I just had to go and see it for myself. I drove 4 hours to catch a show over in College Station, Texas, and there he was, walking and talking and singing just like he was anybody else. And the crowd seemed to just accept that. Not like they were watching technology and history be made right in front of their eyes. I was ready to ask questions to try and get the attention of some of other robotic engineers as this was happening. But after I started listening to the show a little bit more, I thought, maybe I should too. Maybe I should just accept it for what it is right now. And after the show, I got to meet him. and shake his hand, which felt very cold and sturdy. And even though he didn't have a face, I could feel that he appreciated me being there. And then he left. Me and a couple other people saw him drive off in his car, and that was a bit funky looking. And I'm not sure what the legality of that is. I think it counts as a self-driving car with extra steps, I guess? I'm not so sure. Now we arrive at Funkware Update, his most recent album as of recording. And it really made me nostalgic for the older internet. The songs, they still have that rawer quality to them, but now I can feel them a bit more refined. And yes, it's another concept album with its own little mini story. Although this one is kind of like the second album, where it feels a bit more loose. For instance, it's about a computer crashing, and then it gets an update, aptly named from Disco Company, or Discoco, and now your computer accepts this update and it gets funkified. One of these songs even has a feature on it, and they talk back and forth about how much, they could appreciate each other. It's a honey-soaked motherboard, a very interesting visual, I might add.
I am the motherboard, processing data stores, our memories, charging the honey, sapping the sweetness. You are the motherboard, cooling like crystalline, turn on electrified, forming on wires, say when you wanna, say when you wanna.
And I gotta know what the experience of that was, to be the person working with Mr. Machine. That's gotta be weird, surely. But like I said, this new album definitely feels a lot older in its sound. Take a look at this music video for Heatsink. I mean, this looks like it was filmed a way long time ago. But I think that's on purpose. But then that gets me to ask the question again, how is it that a machine can have so much emotion, so much personality, and intentionally try to make something look old or older? It doesn't feel like it's just mimicking stuff. Something like you might get from ChatGPT or them character sites the kids are using nowadays. It's just something I've never seen so convincing before. And again, I still don't know how all the AI tech bros aren't foaming at the mouth to know how he ticks inside. But maybe that's for the best. I mean, I would say that there's a difference between, AI, how we know it today, and something along the lines more of like an android, maybe from something like Dragon Ball Z. But it seems like he enjoys music and video games just like the rest of us. So it's fine to just let that part go. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to love? These are now questions I find myself looking at differently than I did before. And I suppose that's the point. Maybe that's what the couple from way back when was trying to show and ultimately succeed in. Because it really seems like what they made together was a testament to human love and expression. And it seems like they taught him how to show that love and expression just fine. Through the efforts of music, something that's innately very human. I really recommend that you guys go and check out Mr. Machine's music, and hopefully you can get on a similar journey that I had. So I'll link all his stuff down below, because I really think others should see this. And maybe finally I can get the answers to why the last two songs from Reintroduction to Love are called that. But what are your questions? I'd love to hear what you guys think about all this. But as for me,